Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to my latest ranking video, where today I finally rank my top 5 best movies of 2024. Now, I'd like to obviously just clarify something before I begin. Um, there was a brief time when I quit YouTube back in 2023 and I moved to a different channel, and then I did audio reviews for a bit, like in a sort of podcast style. But then I decided to come back to this one and actually do more video based reviews, as I had a lot of personal issues in my life. I had quite an emotional issue to deal with last year, so things were all up in the air for me. But I will do proper reviews for these movies in video form on this channel at some point. But I have actually reviewed a few of them on the other channel, which is Pajak's podcast in audio form. But as I've now switched back, I do realize I need to update the reviews and actually do proper ones. But so apologies about that. But I keep the thoughts in this video at a digest sort of level. But rest assured, I have seen all of these films, obviously, and I do really like them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the list. But it's also important to remember is that I didn't see everything that came out in 2024, so I can only go by the films I've seen. So this is just my personal list. It's purely subjective. If you disagree, that's fine. We can agree to disagree, but just please be polite. Any nastiness or hostility and your comment will be removed. Thank you very much. And enjoy. Please enjoy the list. It's just my opinion. So I'm sure that there'll be people that will roll their eyes, but this is just how I feel. The 5 best movies of 2024. 2024 was a very mixed bag of movies, in my opinion, but these 5 were the ones that stood out to me the most. So number 5 is the latest offering from Pixar, Inside Out 2. Now, I made no secret of the fact that I love the first one. No, scratch that. I adore the first Inside Out. The first Inside Out is my favorite Pixar film. It is a beautiful masterpiece. So uh, I always heard a rumor they were going to make a sequel, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the sequel. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I do really like this film. It deals a lot with the sort of puberty and anxiety of becoming a teenager, and certainly social anxiety. And the third act, where Riley is having her anxiety attack, is pretty powerful stuff. It touches a nerve. It didn't sort of flow as good as the first one for me. The first one just had such a beautiful flow with the way it was edited and the way it was written. This one was a bit more um, I don't want to say loud, but it was a little bit more in your face than the first one. It definitely tried to emulate that sense of chaos, which comes with anxiety. So like everything's just all over the place. There's a lack of control with things. So it did feel like a different movie. So I guess I appreciate that in some regards. But I just thought the film could have maybe slowed down a bit to have a bit more time for some of these emotional beats. But I thought it was a good continuation after the first one. All the old characters coming back was brilliant. I was a bit let down by the music. I'm not going to lie, the music score wasn't the best, but the film was a great experience and it brilliantly written, well directed. The new characters fit in very very well, and the whole idea about finding your sense of self, I think it's a beautiful idea. So Pixar did a very good job with this one. If they do a third, I'm up for it, but I still think the first one is very hard to top. Let's put it that way. But 9 years later, we got something that is still pretty special and a good companion piece to the first one. So, number 4. Now, this might be a little bit biased, as I am a Middle Earth fan. So, Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. I know that a lot of people probably won't put this on their list, but I have to be honest, I really enjoyed this film. Is it as good as Jackson's original trilogy? No, it's not. Although I think in some ways I enjoyed it a bit more than The Hobbit because it got back to that kind of gritty um, side of Middle Earth, which is what I loved about Lord of the Rings, the fact that it took itself seriously. I mean, it is arguably a little bit humorless, but there is one character who is a little bit lighter than the rest. So maybe that's the only difference with that and The Hobbit. But The Hobbit was obviously overstretched to be a trilogy, so that's different in itself, regardless. But I like the story and the fact that we have a female in the lead this time, which is really cool, and the backstory of the Rohirrim and how this conflict sort of started a war. This conflict, which started over nothing, in really, which led to someone dying, and then a war broke out and revenge. It's got a lot of good themes in its story, but it's also epic. And for an anime, it's really impressive, really impressive. I just think they released this movie at the wrong time. I think it was overshadowed by Sonic and Mufasa and all of those films that came out at the same time. But I really enjoyed the direction by Kenji Kamiyama, and again, it was an epic experience, and the voice cast did a really good job, and it definitely felt like it belonged in Jackson's Lord of the Rings universe. And if they were to do more animations, I would certainly be up for it. The action was so epic, and it reminded me so much of Return of the King in a lot of aspects. But I loved being back in Middle Earth, and it was such an immersive experience. And the callbacks to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were really well done. But it did feel like its own thing. It can be enjoyed as a solo adventure, yet it also is a nice backstory to the Two Towers, I suppose you could say. So yeah, it's a win-win for me. It's a fantastic movie and quite emotional in places as well, which is what I was very impressed by. And obviously, to have the producers of Lord of the Rings working on your film with you is that's a treat in itself. So yeah, it's a thumbs up from me. Number three is The Wild Robot. This film is beautiful. I love this film. This is such a heartwarming film, and it's a real tearjerker. I think this is one of the best DreamWorks films in a long time. I really mean that. It's one of their best without question. The ending is beautiful. The whole story is just beautiful. The central relationship with Roz the robot and the duck. Or the goose. I forget his name. I'm so sorry, but that was beautiful. I loved it so many times. It made me cry and made me smile, and I just had such a good time watching it. And there's such a great theme about nature versus technology and how we can actually blend the two together sometimes rather than them be opposing forces. I like the commentary that this film offers, which is, sometimes there's room for both nature and technology. So that in itself is a success, and I think that the movie is gonna go on to be considered a classic for many many years. And I think kids, even though they may not get all of the aspects now, if they keep watching it, they will get the rest of it. And it's beautiful. And again, the animation is very solid. It does take its time to get going, but when it gets going, it gets off, and you're in for a spectacular ride. And there's surprisingly a lot more action than you would think there would be. Certainly, the climax is pretty epic, to say the least, and the secondary characters are all quite fun as well. So this one is definitely a treat to watch. So I highly encourage you check this film out. The next one, it's a film I reviewed on the other channel. I will eventually do a proper review on this channel, but for now, it's Dune Part Two. Dune Part Two. I mean, Denis Villeneuve is one of the most amazing directors that we have working in Hollywood, and just wow, this film is a masterpiece. It is absolutely incredible. The cinematography is some of the best I have ever seen. It is stunning to look at. It's such a world. It's such an epic to watch on screen, and I went to see it a second time because it was so good. I really enjoyed the sort of the scope of it. And the story it's really is like a biblical epic. The way that Paul Atreides is almost treated like the Messiah and having to stand up to the Emperor and all these sort of opposing forces. And because initially the first one was a sort of political drama setup, this one it's got a little bit more action, but it's more of an epic, and I appreciate that. And seeing how certain characters may change in the end is also kind of interesting. But again, this is such a beautiful film to look at. Beautifully shot, stunning. The script is solid as well. And all the other characters, like Austin Butler, is also a highlight. I mean, Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya have some electric chemistry in this film. They are very, very good as an on-screen romantic pair, and the direction is just superb. And I feel like Denis Villeneuve really cut to the heart of the story. There's some elements of the story which are complicated if you haven't read the books. I mean, I haven't read the books, but I just really enjoyed I really enjoyed seeing this story come to life. And there's so much in there, and there's so many people involved, but yet the whole thing hangs together so well. It's, above all else, the story, it just flows, it just works. And I think as a two-part story, it probably works better for that. And I just enjoyed every minute of it. I had my jaw open. I was cheering and screaming, even a couple of tears at one point. The film, it does what a film should do, and the design of the whole thing is fantastic as well. This is a film that has had passion put into it from the beginning, and it was easily going to make the list. The first one I enjoyed. I thought it was good, but I did find the first one to be a slow burn setup. This one is a little slow, and it's longer than the first one. It's like 2 hours 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel as long. And the way that the story ends, it feels like, okay, we've wrapped everything up, but there's still a door left open for more. So it's like it's concluded certain things, but it's not completely finished. So they've clearly set this up to be a trilogy, because I know there's a sequel book that's being developed now. But Denis Villeneuve is such a amazing director. He's such an amazing director. He's so talented. I love his filmmaking style. This might be one of my favorite films of his. He does like his long films. He does like his films to be very long, but it's worth it for this one. And also the sound design and the music. Once again, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful film, and I actually like Rebecca Ferguson a lot more in this one than the first one. So, what is my favourite film of 2024? Well, this might not be a surprise, but to me it was a big surprise. It's actually Wicked, Part 1. Or technically just Wicked now, as they've called the second one Wicked for Good, or whatever. But Wicked, yeah, I mean, I didn't really know what to expect going into this movie, because I have never seen the show. I heard that obviously they were going to adapt the show into two movies. They were going to split it into two parts, and I thought, okay, that's an interesting idea. So we've got the first film as Act 1, and then the first film as Act 2. And then I heard this film was 2 hours and 40 minutes long, and I thought, oh my god, that is really long. I hope it's worth it. And sure enough, it is. I saw this with my friends, and I couldn't believe how good this film was. I was stunned. I thought, wow, not only is this very entertaining, it tells a very good story with a lot of heart, and it's edited superbly. This is the best editing I've seen in a film for a long time. I mean it, guys. Honestly, the editing in this film, you wouldn't think it's 2 hours 40 minutes. That's the sign of great editing. That's the sign of one of the best edited movies ever, is that you don't feel the length. Whoever the editor was, give them a raise, because they made this story work without it feeling too brisk or too slow. It was just right. It introduces the characters in such a great way, has fun with all the musical numbers. Everything about this film is big and grand and epic, yet it still has the time to home in on an emotional story about, the animal cruelty, I suppose, is the main theme of this film, which is surprising. I mean, I've never seen this show, so I didn't know what to expect. But sure enough, the ending cliffhanger leaves you wanting more, a lot more. I mean, obviously the last musical number, everybody knows what it is, but I'm not going to say just in case. But at the heart of all this is the two lead performances. Ariana Grande as Glinda, or Linda, whichever way you want to say it. She's very good. I like her, and obviously we know she's a great singer, but her characterization is great. She gets a laugh out of me a few times as well. And Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, they are both amazing together, and they have such a good chemistry. They're both amazing singers, and it's as much one's film as the other. It's not as if one overshadows the other. They complement each other, which is fantastic. Jeff Goldblum, though, as the wizard, was an odd choice, I must admit. I was a bit surprised that they cast Jeff Goldblum, especially as he's not really known to be a singer. But I thought he was okay, actually. I thought he did quite a good job. And then Fierro was a good character, and all of the CGI and the production values were immense. And again, the level of heart that this film had was amazing. It definitely screams like a passion project. You definitely feel like Universal and everyone behind this were invested in it. They wanted to get it right because they knew the show was so popular and they knew that the story worked. And obviously, they with a split, you could argue that it would have been a cash cow, but we'll see how part two delivers because part two needs to send this off in the right way. If part two fails, this will be completely redundant. So hopefully, part two, which is coming this year, is going to be just as good, if not better, than this one. But this one was stunning. It's a stunning film, and once again, I can't praise the editing enough. And the story, again, like Dune, part two, the story just works. It just flows. Whoever wrote the script and adapted this did a really good job. And John M. Chu's direction, spot on, spot on. I even shed a tear a couple of times, which is surprising. But me and my friends, when we walked out of that cinema, we were blown away. We were like, "Wow, it's so good. It's so good." And that's why I'm honestly surprised to say it, but Wicked Part 1 is my favourite movie of 2024 because it just surprised me the most and it brought me so much joy. Yet it also touched me on an emotional level that I really didn't expect. So, watch my review for the full thoughts. But yeah, I've come out of 2024 feeling like, wow, that was not what I expected in terms of the movies. So yeah, that's my list for my top 5 favourite movies of 2024. So just to recap, number 5 is Inside Out 2, 4 is Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, 3 is The Wild Robot, 2 is Dune Part 2, and 1 is Wicked Part 1. So, with every best list there comes a worst list, and don't worry, the worst list is on its way. Yeah, that will be coming very, very soon. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave me your list down below, like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, I'm Pajak's Perspective. See ya. Bye for now.